Good morning, everyone, and welcome back into North Dakota Today. Rob Branting is the historic site supervisor for the Oscar Zero, missile site in Cooperstown, North Dakota. He is here to tell us all about our state's role in the Cold War. Welcome, Rob.
Well, thank you for having me down.
Of course. This is something I feel that is gaining more interest and popularity, especially I feel like with the Oppenheimer movie.
Well, certainly this summer, this is the busiest we've been in 13 years.
Wow.
And you know, it's been a very exciting year for well, the upcoming Oppenheimer movie. But it's something to describe to folks that Oppenheimer was just the first part of the Cold War.
Yes.
And then you're entering past 1945, and a lot of folks don't realize how big of a role North Dakota had in that conflict.
Definitely. So tell us about the missile site.
Well, we consist of two missile sites. The Oscar Zero is the missile alert facility that was formerly assigned to the Grand Forks Air Force Base. And then our November 33 launch facility, the actual missile silo site, is available for topside self-guided tours. But at Oscar Zero, we give guided tours of the facility topside and down below, 50 feet.
Definitely. I actually went to Oscar Zero on a school trip in high school. I went to Hope High School, so it was pretty close, and it's really an amazing facility. I think we even have a photo too. So you're completely underground. And what was the use for that? I think the controls were down there, correct?
Correct. I mean, you had a top facility, just looks like a normal house. It's got a barbed wire fence around it. It's not the most friendly looking place, but we certainly allow folks for tours. But down below 50 feet, you're in these hardened capsules built to withstand a nearby nuclear burst. But you had two missileers on alert duty for a 24-hour shift, essentially keeping an eye on the nuclear missiles, a flight of 10 nuclear missiles that could, within 30 minutes, strike targets in the Soviet Union. Wow.
Oh my goodness. So why North Dakota for this site?
It's interesting. We like to say there's like three principal reasons. Our flight path over Canada, over the North Pole to the Soviet Union was a little shorter than most parts of the country. We also had some of the land available. But lastly, they said that we were further away from the population centers. Okay. So if there was a Soviet strike against, our missile sites, that would hopefully spare the cities. But you know what? I live here too. So it's just like, well, but that was the idea during the Cold War, was to put those missiles out in rural areas.
Yes, definitely. Well, that is so interesting. So I know that this is also a part of the Ronald Reagan Minuteman Missile Historic Site in general. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yep, that's our official name, Ronald Reagan's Minuteman Missile State Historic Site. You really get to know it over a few years, but we like to go by Oscar Zero just for short terms. But we talk about the missile mission specifically. There were once 300 Minuteman missiles in North Dakota, but you're also looking at the bomber mission, the air defense mission. They even had nuclear rockets attached to the fighter planes up here at Hector International Airport.
Wow.
But one thing we like to say on tour is that had we seceded from the United States, North Dakota would have been the third largest nuclear power on Earth.
Wow.
So.
Oh my goodness. So you said this kind of has become known as Oscar Zero. What does that name kind of come from?
Well, it goes by the what's called the NATO phonetic alphabet. So if I'm talking on the radio, instead of like A for Apple, I'll say A for Alpha. So there was an Alpha site way by the Canadian border, and O is just Oscar. But if you look around our site, you go down below, you'll see a few paintings of Oscar the Grouch.
Oh, wow.
They kind of embrace that, over time.
Definitely. So. I love that. So you are the kind of director of this site. What has really been your experience with educating the public on this?
Well, a lot of folks don't know how big of a role there, again, North Dakota played. But, we have a lot of school groups on tour, and then you try to kind of explain nuclear deterrence in the Cold War, and it's a very scary subject. Yes. I mean, anybody who's seen Oppenheimer, it's a very, well, there again, scary subject. But it's also important to know that these missiles were here for the role of nuclear deterrence. They were here to specifically prevent war. Had they been launched, they would have failed in their mission.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. So how can people find out more about this site and maybe even pay a visit?
Well, we are 4 miles north of Cooperstown, North Dakota. We're up there on Facebook, Oscar Zero ND, but just look up the Ronald Reagan Minuteman Missile State Historic Site. We have a sister site down in South Dakota, and they're a little busier than we are, but certainly we invite folks to visit for the summer and the fall.
Is it open year-round in the winter too?
We're open by appointment in the wintertime after October 31st.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. This was very interesting.
Yeah, thanks for having me down.
Of course. All right, stick around, everyone. We have much more North Dakota Today coming up after the break.